So I'm just gonna have this sample out. And this is why you kind of want it to hit the C. I've got our full frequency saw wave there, right? And I'm just going to do two voices. We've got one voice on the left, one voice on the right, and they're both just slightly out of tune, right? And the further out of tune they get, the faster the beats between them, right? So that slight difference in tuning, maybe the left is 32.5 and the right is 32.9. That 0.4 difference is the more separated they get, the faster that beat gets. So this is the trick that Reese Basses use, and that it's just utilizing this. So I'm gonna do it with square waves. You can really hear it good. So here's like perfectly in tune, right? And then you'll hear it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take like an EQ, something like this, make it a notch, make it a little fat, and I'm just gonna do one of those, but like super slow. And then maybe I'll do the same thing, kind of opposite. Oh, yeah, it's doing it. Okay. We'll do a different rate so it's not so. We're still hitting our C, and I'll just distort it because you're going to get dB peaks and dB, spikes and all this, spikes and dips from this crazy EQ shape, right? So I'm just going to make up for that a little bit with some soft clipping. And you can see that here, whereas like without it, it kind of moves around, whoa, right? And then with this guy, it kind of just stays in one spot, reducing dynamics like we're talking about with the compressor earlier. So there's a couple of different ways you can actually kind of resample this. You can actually click this little guy right here, this drag export on Serum. The last thing you play, holding a C, right? You can actually take that, it will kind of record the thing that you did here, and you can drag it back into, take the warp off. Right, and you can continue to sample that by dragging this back into the noise oscillator if you want. Make sure it's on. I'm not going to do it that way though. I'm just going to freeze and flatten this just for the sake of trying to prove this point here, right? And so I'm going to take that and drag that into the simpler. Shoop. And it's like way too low, right? Because we were hitting like a C0 up here. C3 will play the sample as it was when you dragged it in, right? So if your sample is hitting an F, you're going to hit C3 and it'll play an F. If I was to detune this to like -6, it's going to ignore that. You would need to do it -6, Command J, and then drag it in there for it to pay attention to that tuning, right? Because otherwise it's just reading this file as the audio file it would be if you just hit play on iTunes or something, just dragged it into Windows Media Player. So if you want to detune it and then drag it in, you got to detune it, consolidate, Command J or Control J for you, and then drag it in there so that tuning will be printed into the simpler. And now that I think about it, I want to do sampler. It's really easy to do that, whatchamacallit, that reverse trick here. So drag it into here. It'll get there in a second, and then it just, boom, easily kind of loops back. And you can go and find like the perfect spot where it crosses your 0 here if you want to like prevent the popping. Let's see if we got it. That's pretty close. I'm gonna just keep distorting it, right? Like I'm just gonna use Ableton stuff for this. We'll just do amp. Ooh. We're just going to do one big long note. Right. And so the key, or actually, you know what? I'm going to do that. And then we'll do like an auto filter thing before the distortion and do like, let's try it different. That's kind of cool. Keep it going. And then just like a real something maybe not as. Oh, I heard it start over. We'll make it stop here. Just have it do that. All right, so same thing. I'm just gonna freeze and flatten that, and then we're gonna drag this back. And the key here is that you're always hitting a C, right? So you can try different notes. Flatten, that's fine. And now I'll use simpler. Drag this guy into the simpler. Make sure you're hitting one voice. And this is where you can turn your glide on. Let me try to do a crazy automation or something, or a little slide. Too long. Right, and you hear it like whoa, 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 whoa,
Mhm.
whoa.